If I look at my experiences of teaching, then maybe I can start with my own schooling. And uh, actually my own school was a dysfunctional school, in a way, primary school where I studied. And the teaching method was very, very simple. That you are given some book and some homework, you are supposed to prepare it by tomorrow, and next day you are supposed to show that you have prepared. While teaching, this was very simple method. Apart from mathematics and everything else, open the book on a particular page, read it, and the teacher will explain. And this system of underlining the answers were not used, fortunately. So you have to look for your answers. Questions were written at the end of the chapter, and you have to look for the answers in the text. This was very good that at that time this method of starting from line this to this was not invented. My teacher didn't know this method. Now, much of my observation of the government school teaching and many private school teaching actually confirms to this. When they are teaching in 4th standard, 6th standard, 5th standards, etc. I encountered lots of classrooms where the teacher was slightly embarrassed to use this method because of the DPP rhetoric of child-centrism activity methods, but the teacher was still using the same method. So this still seems to be a very prevalent method to me in the Indian classrooms. In a half-joking manner, this is in North India called two-bird method. Two-bird means you read method. That you read this paragraph, you read this paragraph, you read this paragraph, and this goes on. So, now teacher's explanation sometimes is very good and sort of takes children into a certain sort of understanding. But most often, this is a repetition of the same thing in slightly different words, which are hardly simpler for the child to understand. Our textbooks also have a huge problem. They want to teach too much in too short a text, and therefore the words might be simple, but the text becomes very dense in terms of concepts and claims which are being made. So this is one kind of situation which is often there. And obviously, textbook is considered always to be the true knowledge, so this is the gospel, and the teacher is the authentic interpreter of it. So this often it looks like an indoctrination program into the knowledge encapsulated into the textbook, explained by the official interpreter of that religious text. It sounds like that to me. This may not be. If you really examine sociologically whether it has religious overtones, you will find it doesn't. I'm just trying to underline the fact, that's what I'm saying. Now, I have also seen many classes where there are attempts to organize teaching in an activity-based method, or what they call child-centric methods. I have seen various examples of it. Some are laughable, some were genuine attempts at doing something. For example, one kind of school I saw on what they called multi-grade teaching was that the teacher asked these groups of children, say of the 1st standard, 2nd standard, 3rd standard, to sit at different places with a blackboard. Came to one group, very quickly explained something on the blackboard, asked them to do something, ran to the second class, and then did something on that, and then ran to the 3rd standard, and sort of, he called it multi-grade teaching. Grades were separate, teaching was explaining on the board, the only thing was the teacher was running from one to another. So this was one kind of way of looking at it. Some of the good classes I saw where children were interacting and engaging in activities were in Kerala, somewhere around 2000. We evaluated DPP project there, and we went to several large schools there, about 45 of them. I visited about 10. So very often I saw classrooms which were very cheap, where children were working in small groups. Uh, what they were teaching was again from the textbooks, but the textbook was much more improved. The textbook was better. Uh, Also, methods of explanation were not great, and there was too much emphasis on uh, children discovering that, while what the children had to be discovered was already written in the textbook. It seems to me that, first of all, there are various kinds of schools in India. Therefore, generalizing on any one kind of method goes on teaching wouldn't do. We have about 10 different kinds of schools, and there might be significant difference in these schools. The second thing is that if we talk of an ordinary government primary school, then the methods remains more or less the same, apart from some examples of different kinds of teaching. Let's also note in this that for last about 40 years we have been trying to shift language teaching from starting with letters to sometimes starting with words, sometimes the whole language. In spite of starting with the word being a better method, teachers were not prepared and not convinced. Therefore, at this moment, books might be proclaiming that this is starting with the word, but actually teachers go back to starting with the letter because they are not confident of the pedagogy. This I am saying on the basis of one particular district where we were helping in in-service training for about 4 years. And teachers in discussions openly admitted that okay, book is like this and we are trained to teach in this manner, but this doesn't work and we want the children to learn, therefore we teach in the same old method. And actually in their classrooms also they did. We also experienced that if you start interacting with teachers and prove it to them, convince to them that this is possible to work in the classroom in a different manner, and this does not involve either a superhuman being or extraordinarily more work, then teachers also shift their pedagogy and are willing to experiment. So then I would also say that our pedagogy remains in the rut and has not changed much, but at the same time, this is not because of the teachers. This is because of adequate preparation and support system not being available. So that would be a general rough statement on how it goes, etc. To my mind, the child-centric pedagogy has gained ground in rhetoric and discourse, not in the practice. I'm not a great child-centrist, therefore I don't even consider that a great loss, to tell you frankly. But there are some very important and good aspects of child-centric pedagogy, which would have done a lot of good to our system.